Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Del Mendo, and in a second, our very special guest. Get a little extra morale going on this show today. Lots to talk about. Everybody's been waiting in the live chat. Thanks for waiting. I was just loading up on my cough drops and cough medicine. Thanks for all the kind wishes. I am alive. I'm okay. Yeah, Craig says, everybody in the live chat, best way to enjoy the experience, by the way, for CHGO is download and sign up and subscribe for the CHGO experience at CHGO Sports YouTube page, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sign up and do that. Thanks to you guys for holding down the fort very admirably.
Yep.
Big of me.
Very big of you.
No,
No, seriously. I miserable. I had a sinus infection, still have a sinus infection. But you know, you guys don't complain. You don't complain. You just show up and do the show.
Yeah.
Don't miss a beat. I watched Cody get real comfortable here. I was waiting for him to take off his shoes in this chair, and I thought, oh, boy.
Should have.
Yeah, big of us to do that, but also big of me to be sitting this close to Luke
That's
now.
right. That's right. Well,
Credit
I'm on
to you.
antibiotics now. Antibiotics.
Yeah.
Kid goes to daycare for one day. The whole house is sick. One day.
So now I know
No
everything
COVID.
I need to know about daycare now.
COVID-free. I've seen a lot of boogers in the last 4 days. Hey, so we have a special guest. Speaking of boogers, no. And Greg Bragg's running the ones and twos, so we got a lot of special guests today. But
Plenty of meatballs to go around.
yeah, we want to say hello to our special guest, Dom Frederick, the director of morale, is here today. He's joining us via hotline. I believe it's the Greg Bragg's hotline, we call it.
Oh, yeah.
Meatball highlight.
Meatball hotline, is that what we're
Bagman.
calling it?
Yes, sir.
Bagman hotline?
The Portillo's meatball hotline?
Well, Portel's got to pay the piper.
Parnelli's.
Yeah.
Parnelli's.
There you go, okay.
If they want to,
But
anybody
this
wants
is their
it.
first free one.
Anybody wants the hotline, they got to pay the piper.
I still say that we have to make a mask with the morale bear, and Dom can just come into studio and wear the mask.
That's what I would like to see.
I
like-
think that would be peak CHGO Cubs.
Just like a
Like a
hazmat
giant,
suit
like a
with
giant
the-
fat head. Just put it in front of the whole chair.
yeah. There you
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
Dom, are you there? Can you hear us? We lost him already. Bragg's lost him already.
Oh, Bragg's lost him.
Look at this. Can you believe this? Gone one day.
All
He's
right,
gone.
like, unbelievable.
He lost him in the meatball sauce. We had him in. We had.
Who let Braggs run the one?
We had Meatball Island open, and then Godfather says, "Welcome back, Luke. Cody did a fine job in your absence."
What about me,
Credit to
Godfather?
Godfather.
Listen, Godfather, I'm aware. I saw the shows. I knew what was going on. I knew there was a possible coup underway.
I never get any love
A Cody
in our
coup.
chat.
Actually, Ryan did a very nice job of following up in the last episode with a Rich. He was like, now, Cody, are we going to be on at 1:20 tomorrow? And just a reminder, it was his way of subtly reminding it.
yeah.
No,
Because
3
we're doing the show
o'clock.
at 3 today, right?
Special time, 3 o'clock, because we want to make sure that we could get the
We have
director
some
of morale
technical
on.
difficulties with.
He's going to be here in a second.
How about we just...
So
You want to just start
Hey,
talking
we'll get
baseball?
going, we'll get,
No,
we'll
I'm
get him
here.
on.
I'm here.
Oh, he's there.
Oh,
He's
there
there.
he
He's
is.
there.
Got him.
Hold on. He's there.
Greg
He's there.
didn't let me in.
We got him.
we can blame Bragg.
Yeah, we'll blame Braggs for that one.
Well, Fred, it's not easy to get on to Meatball Island. You got to have a special card. You got to have one of our
I
diehard
know.
cards.
Well, I heard a couple weeks ago I was an honorary member, so I appreciate that as always. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me again.
So how you feeling coming off this season? We said it for the last week or two. It's like, man, it's a mixed emotions thing, right? Like they made progress.
Yeah.
The team's better, but that was a horrible
Yeah.
finish to the season.
It was a terrible finish, and I know I've been one to, if you want to say I'm apologizing for the finish, that's fine. If you disagree with me on it, I understand that. In the end, I kind of thought the Cubs were who, at least speaking for myself, who I thought they were going into the season. I said they were an 80-win team. They end up winning, 83 or 84? A little bit of improvement there. Happy at the progress they made. Happy the individual, strides or big performances guys had, like Steele and, Dansby showing up in his first year. Bellinger, obviously. It's tough that they're out, but in the end, I was ready for this from the beginning of the year, and I'm just happy, as I know many Cubs fans are, that we were playing competitive games at the end of the stretch, even though they went horribly wrong and obviously didn't go our way.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at the deadline, Me and you both around the same day were like, this team's done. And then we were both proven wrong. Credit to us for admitting that we were wrong, because a lot of people wouldn't do that, Dom. So credit to you, man.
I've admitted it all the way. I was on vacation and I was listening to the game. I said, "This is over, man. This is it. We have one of the best players around. To be free agent that we're going to end up trading. A few other guys. Moralzale was starting to pitch really well. Like, it just all lined up for the Cubs to go and sell. I mean, Jed even said it himself. If Tauchman doesn't make that catch to rob the home run and a few other plays don't go our way, we probably are selling. And we're not having this conversation right now, but I will fully admit that they proved me wrong. They, figured it out and were able to finish off and play 2 months of meaningful baseball. 2 months that I did not think we were going to get come around that same time you're talking about.
I was going to ask you, I saw one of your tweets recently, and it was, I think a lot of Cubs fans were thinking it yesterday watching the Phillies. First of all, it's hard to watch the Phillies for Schwarber because
he's Castellanos.
Yeah, and Castellanos. But for me, Schwarber's still the one because it was for nothing. He just walked away, and they gave up on him. But to see Bryce Harper, who had been rumored to be coming to the Cubs for a long time, and then it was, biblical losses, and it didn't happen, and he went away, and now you see a $330 million contract, and you're like, well, that seems like a pretty good deal. I'm curious if you think the Cubs have learned their lesson from letting Bryce Harper slip away.
I think this offseason is going to tell it all. Luke, I think the first time we ever talked, we were having this conversation back 5-6 years ago when Bryce Harper was on the free agent market. Like, the fact that it's played out this way is something, man. I mean, that video that the video that came out with the press conference last night just wanted me to run through a brick wall, and I have no feelings toward the Phillies or Philadelphia, anything like that. That guy that contract has pretty much paid for itself already, and it just goes to show that, like, when you have a generational talent that is basically sitting there waiting for you to sign him. The guy's dog's name was Wrigley. I mean, his best friend was on the team. Yeah, like, I hope, with all things considered, the Cubs learn their lesson and realize that when you have a guy that's sitting there waiting for you, you go snatch it up and deal with the issues later on. I fully believe that, and I this offseason is going to say it all. And I feel like I say this every offseason, but I've already said to start off the show, apologize, or at least I can swallow what happened this year. Next year, totally different. I've written out my goals. You can look at my Twitter bio. Win the goddamn division, win a playoff game, then obviously win the World Series in 4 games. Those are my goals. Those are the standards I'm holding this team to. If you don't know what they are, just look at my Twitter bio and you'll figure it out. Those are my 3 commandments. That's all I'm going off of this year. And it's not going to happen if you're not going to bring in some generational guys onto this team one way or another. It's got to happen.
Yeah, I think when you talk about Bryce Harper, like, part of, like, learning the lesson at that point in time for him, or learning it eventually, was, the fact that the farm system was in just bad shape, that they weren't supplementing the roster with cheap, cost-controlled, yearly controlled players, and it was like year after year, like, trying to. I mean, yeah, they have the resources to sign Bryce Harper at the time, but it was also like they were spending so much money trying to fix the holes in the roster that they couldn't do with their farm system, that eventually it got to a point where they couldn't justify spending the money on Bryce Harper. So I agree with you, because now, well, they have a lot of space under the luxury tax to start with, but now the farm system's in a much better place. Like, they're long-term they have long-term financial flexibility because they don't have a lot of long contracts weighing him down for, I know Dansby's got 6 years or whatever on his contract, but nothing else besides that. So, like, I assume that's what you want to see, is the Cubs going out and spending the necessary money to improve this team. But on your list of priorities, what's number one? Is it re-signing Bellinger? Is it going out and getting someone else? What, as far as they can do with the resources they have financially, what is your number one priority that you want to see as the Cubs do this offseason?
I'm going to frame it this way. There are 2 of 3 things that have to happen. Number one, re-sign Cody Bellinger. This is not in order of importance either. This is just three things that I think these three things need to happen. Re-sign Cody Bellinger, trade for an impact middle of the order bat that you're going to end up giving away young players that, you love, but you just have to swallow it because the Cubs need a three hitter. I'm all about Ian Happ. We all know that, but he's not a three hitter. He's a 5 or 6 hitter, maybe slots in at the top of the order for specific matchups. He's not a three hitter. Love the guy, not a three hitter. And then you got to get a frontline starter, like a legit frontline starter. Not saying Justin Steele isn't one, but I think after that, especially with how Stroman has been fading, and this was just a weird season, and you need a number 2, or you need a 1B, whatever it is. 2 of those 3 things have to happen.
Yeah.
If you at the end of the day, and I know I've been on record by saying you have to re-sign Cody Bellinger, you have to re-sign him, non-negotiable. I realize I've said that, but if the Cubs go out and do the 2 following, trade for an impact, a legitimate impact bat, and then sign a frontline starter, I can accept Cody Bellinger not being here. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think we're in a better situation, but you can't go into this offseason not accomplishing any of those 3 things. You can't. If the Cubs don't do either of those, I don't know how we meet my goals. I'm going to keep coming back to my goals, guys, because there's no reason the Cubs should be looking at a situation next year where we're like, all right, let's just try to get into the wild card again. No, not in this division. We know what the Brewers are, guys. We know it. I know they've been consistent in the regular season. I know they more or less have dominated this division ever since the Cubs stopped doing it. But I've said it so many times, this division is just here for the taking, and it's time we go and do it already. I wanted that Wrigley North, that final series at Wrigley North so bad. I wanted that to come on the table where we go out, we win the final series of the season, and then we end their season at Wrigley North. It would have been incredible, and we don't get it. And I need that. I truly need that. And to achieve that, going back to what I said, 2 of those 3 things have to be accomplished this offseason. Just have to.
Yeah, and I think when you say, the goal shouldn't just be to sneak into the wild card, because that was the goal this year.
No.
Was to
Yep.
make the playoffs. So if you're in that same position next year, it's either, injuries and things out of their control took a major impact, which is possible, right? You can never predict that. Or you didn't do enough to improve the roster. And if you're the Cubs, you can't let it be that second thing. If injuries and all that stuff happen, you can't control that. But if it's B, if it's option B, and you didn't do enough to improve the roster where the goal should be higher, that's something they can control, and that's an indictment on them.
Absolutely. And if they're a wild card team next year, they better be a 95, 97, 2015 team flying out of the NL Central like a bat out of hell, just with bad intentions going into the playoffs. That's the only way I'm necessarily. I mean, I'm obviously going to accept the playoff berth. We haven't won a playoff game in what will be 7 years, but it better be the situation when we have some bad intention going into October. It can't be we're falling back like we potentially were doing this year if we found our way in.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, Cody. I think they need more than what Dom is saying.
I don't think it's enough. I do too, Luke.
I don't think that's enough.
This is the bare minimum.
Yeah.
The bare minimum. Yeah.
Right?
I'm with you. Bellinger, the process of bringing Bellinger back is so dependent on how I feel about the rest of the offseason. And Dom, you made a good point. If it's not Bellinger, then you have to find a way to replace him, but then also continue to add after that, adding a 3-hitter. So, yeah, they could let Bellinger walk and, I don't know, trade for Juan Soto, but you're not making the team any better. Honestly, it's still the same team in some aspects.
I think Soto makes it better, but it doesn't move the needle enough that it's a vastly improved roster.
I'm still if you let Bellinger walk and you trade for Juan Soto and add some smaller pieces after that, I'm still probably going to feel about the same about the team this year as I did last year. What Dom is saying in terms of taking hold of the division, putting the flagpole down and saying it's time because the farm system is better now and you've developed some guys, you got guys on the way. Of all these years where I've complained about how how the last 4 years, 5 years now have gone, and how it shouldn't have never been this way. You could have shooken up the team after the 2018 season. You could have signed Bryce Harper. You could have done all kinds of things, but you didn't. You ran it back with the same team in 2019. Basically, you didn't sign Bryce Harper. You signed Daniel freaking Descalso. I'm freaking sick to my stomach saying it out loud in front of this microphone. And then you go into 2020 before the pandemic even happens, and you still don't really do anything. They ran it back multiple times with basically the same team. Like, that ended up playing a role in why the trade deadline in 2021 happened. And so now, to fast forward, they sold all the guys, whatever. We can sit here and say that it was the right move or the wrong move for certain reasons, whatever. But the farm system is better. They seem to have a core of guys that they can build a team around. Nico, Dansby, Saya, Ian Happ, all that. A couple other guys. And you got young guys coming up next year especially. This is the offseason to really, like, let the league know that you're back, man. Like, really back. Not like, I'm in and out, snip, snap, Michael Scott style in freaking July before the trade deadline, right? Like, I want to go into April next year, dude, and feel confident about 90 wins. That's what I want. That's 100%. What the expectation should be, bro.
Cody also said the 2022 team was going to win like 87 games.
Yeah, but
so 90 wouldn't be that.
I remember that. Cody, yeah. I don't mean to get off topic, but I think at some point in the show we do need to talk about David Ross, because I did see the tweet of if they don't make the playoffs, he should be fired. And I want to hear your thoughts on that, because obviously we disagree.
We got a lot of
but I don't.
In the
but
chat asking that.
I know you're
Cody,
a David Ross guy. I wouldn't say I'm not, but anyway. Yeah.
Let's get to Ross in a second. I want to know, okay, so let's say Bellinger isn't the route. I think we would all say that Bellinger is a perfect fit, and giving him even overpaying him is not a mistake, because I don't believe you have a first baseman. He's a perfect fit there. He can play center field. He's great defensively. He's young. He's a left-handed bat, which is so hard to find. But replacing him is not enough. Just bringing in Alonso in a trade that's not even a wash in my eyes, because one guy's better defensively. Sure, one guy might have more power, but I want an additional player, like you're saying. So whether it's who do you guys really want? Realistically, who do you really want them to go get? If you had your wish list, would you say would getting Shohei be enough to then say, okay, well then if they don't get Bellinger, that's okay? Would it be Soto and Yamamoto? That would be, you'd be like, okay, they didn't get Bellinger, but they got Yamamoto and they traded for Soto and they signed player X to be their third baseman. What do you really want in your dreams?
So I think for me, I like the Soto Yamamoto option. I think that would be great. I think a lot of it comes down to, and I know some fans want to hear it. Some fans are not in favor of it because it is kind of a shot in the dark. What do you really think about PCA, and what do you think about Canario, right? Those two guys seemingly you think would have a chance to be on this roster next year, depending if they made the moves, like we said, a Soto decision. What does that do with Canario? Does Canario go in the trade? He probably does, but in those terms, like, how much stock is Jed putting into these young players? I don't really know. I feel like in the past, like, looking at Jed historically, like, a lot of stock, right? Like, we gave Albert Almora a lot of run. We rode with guys like Schwarber for a long time, who obviously I was a big fan of, but, like, we saw that the Cubs plan, and I know Theo was in charge then, but, like, the Cubs plan was, we have our bats, we're going to ride and die with these bats, and we're going to see what happens. And we obviously knew what happened. I wonder if that's going to be the same thought process that Jed has again, realizing that there are a lot of bats coming up, and we just need to play PCA enough to get him comfortable to have his talent shine out. I don't know if that's necessarily the play I would use, but I think that plays a big role into it, because at the end of the day, like, PCA has to play a big role here long term if we're going to be the next great Cubs team, because we're obviously hyping up our farm system, And that's the double-edged sword you kind of run with, the rebuilding and building a young group up like we saw, whatever it was, 8-9 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think we're never going to see the Cubs do what Steve Cohen does or what the Padres did, like to just try to buy a championship. I think what you're saying is like the farm system. Like the farm system is what led them to the World Series in 2016. It was those guys going through the system, coming up and succeeding. They really want to be able to repeat that, but not let it fall off a cliff as it did in the later years of that run where they weren't bringing any more prospects. I think like getting guys like Pete Crow Armstrong and just some of these bigger prospects, hyper prospects that they have, they want them to come up and succeed and be big parts of the future. And I think they'll spend money as they have the last couple off season, maybe even a little bit more to make the roster as good as it can be, but they want those young guys to be a big part of that and for more young guys to be continuing to move the way up and filling in holes when needed. I think they weren't able to do that last year. Again, when you talk about learning lessons from the last time, that was a thing they couldn't do successfully, and that's what they want to be able to do this season. It's not going to be about go get this free agent, patch this hole with that. They really want these young guys, these cost-controlled players, to be able to fill in some of those roster holes, supplement the big free agent signings that they might make. And I think that is like where they see the perfect balance of sustaining a winner that they couldn't do last time.
Well, it's why I love I like the Soto idea, but I like spending Tom's money better. Right? That's how I've always said. I'd rather see him give too much money to Shohei Ohtani, too much money to Cody Bellinger, and then still have the farm system to be able – like, that's why we're the Cubs, and we're not the Milwaukee Brewers. You could do both. He can spend an insane amount of money this offseason again and still have the farm system to then ease that pain in the future if you want to call having Shohei and or Bellinger pain, right? Like, sure. But you can be a real contender next year and still not delete the farm system. I'm not saying you hold on to everybody because Ryan was one that said, hey, hold on, go ahead and trade for Soto now.
I said that last year.
Right, you said that last year, and I was like, they don't have the farm. If they took this time to get the farm system, you're just going to have what they had at the Nationals. You're going to have one player. So I didn't like that at the time, but now in hindsight, looking back at it, if you pick the right players, if you're confident in your evaluation of which prospects you're giving away, then it's okay. But it's also about what these other teams are evaluating. Sure. As fans, a lot of people were high on the Mervis train, and now if somebody said, okay, what if the other team wants Mervis? No way. It might have been said a year ago, and now people are like, after watching 10 games of PCA and a couple games of Mervis during the season, they're like, well, I'd trade PCA and Mervis. So it's just
crazy.
It's how do you evaluate your players and how do other teams evaluate those prospects? But still the best path forward for the Cubs, in my eyes, is spending money. Yeah. Period.
Of course. And Luke, I think the trading piece is important. I'm not saying the Cubs should do exactly what the rest of the NL Central team, the rest of these small market Mickey Mouse teams we have in our division. But if you look at it, last couple of years, the reason the Brewers and the Cardinals have been in the position they've been in is because of these trades. Nolan Arenado, Goldschmidt, Yelich, Contreras. They're the Brewers shortstop. I'm forgetting his name for some reason right now. Like, they've just found a way to make really smart, heady trades, and frankly, the Cubs haven't. Like, we haven't had one since what, Jake? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, we haven't done that. We have not been creative enough, and we've ridden our guys, and that's why I think this offseason is like the perfect time to go out and let's make a game-changing trade because we haven't seen one in a while. And sure, teams get burned on it a lot. I get it, but just looking around us, like in close proximity, like the only reason these teams have been close to us, other than the fact that we haven't really tried, over the last couple of years, is because they've made these like genius trades and they find these superstars and they extend them and they, find their way into the playoffs because they have like a legitimate superstar on their team. So I I hope we can follow that same suit. But I totally agree, Luke. It's time to spend the money. It's time to look at the Phillies, Rangers. It doesn't work out all the time, but God, I'll take that route any day than trying to wait on prospects and wait for the exact time for everything to come together at once. Like, you got to go out and get the players. Stars winning this league, and I hope it happens. It's a big offseason.
I was gonna say, related to like you're talking about spending money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, outside of Ohtani this offseason on the free agent market, like the unrestricted free agents, after Ohtani, it's like Jock Peterson, Evan Longoria, like Teoscar Hernandez, Matt Chapman. Like it's not a great free agent class. Like after Ohtani, it's like
right.
Whatever. Like
Bellinger's like the number 2.
I like Matt Chapman, but to me, he's a third base version of Dansby Swanson, which he's great defensively, but especially after April this year, he did not hit well. And it's like this team needs a big bat, right?
Big bat.
And listen, if they got Chapman to go at third base, I probably it wouldn't move the needle for me. They'd have one of the best defensive infields in all of baseball, if not the best. But again, as we've seen this postseason, as we saw all year, you gotta like Jed said himself, and then didn't really do it. You gotta blow teams out, man. And so that's my against Matt Chapman. It's not even that I don't want him. It's more of like if the Cubs didn't have Dansby Swanson, I'd be like, let's go get Matt Chapman. You know what I mean? But they don't need another Dansby Swanson in the lineup, So again, like, okay, you want to give all this money to Ohtani? I'm still in on him, even though he's not going to pitch next year. I'd love to get Ohtani, but to Dom's point and to me bringing up the trade scenario for Juan Soto, the free agent market just isn't great this offseason. And if they
deep,
and if they really want to take that next step into being a real contender and running away with this division, or at least being going into next season as favorites, they got to make a big trade for a guy who's going to be available, and whether it's Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, whatever other name that's going to get thrown out there over the next handful of weeks as the rest of the postseason continues and everything. Like, the Cubs should be part of that. Jose Ramirez, like, that's a name that I've thrown out on this show. I don't know if the Guardians are going to want to trade him, but they were as mediocre as any team that's a small market this past year, and he's making a lot of money. Do the Guardians want to keep paying him money? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just saying that the Cubs should be getting creative, like Dom said, to make something happen.
Like when he talks about the Brewers with Yelich or the Cardinals with Goldschmidt and Arenado, it's like, if the Cubs can do that, and they don't have to do that every year, right? Like, those are big trades for like guys that ended up being superstars. It doesn't happen all the time, but if they can do that, this offseason for a guy like Juan Soto, right, or whenever, if they can be able to do that, then the only difference between the Cubs and the Cardinals and the Brewers is the Cubs also have a lot more money. Right. They're the third biggest market in baseball. So if they can get to a point, and that's when we talk about like the Braves and the Dodgers, like teams that organizationally always make smart moves. Sign free agents when they need it, and their system is just up and down, healthy, and like the Cubs should be, the goal should be to get like those two organizations, because if they can do that, then again the difference between them and the Cardinals and Brewers, who have solid organizations, is that the Cubs have a lot more money, and if they can get to that level with the things that the Cardinals generally do right and the Brewers generally do right, then the Cubs, again, the only difference is the Cubs have more money to do the things that the Cardinals and the Brewers just can't do, because they're not in that size of a market.
Real quick, we're going to take a break here. We're talking to the one and only Dom Frederick on Twitter. He is at DOM_Frederick, no K, just a C, Director of Morale. I do want, before we go to break though, throw out one name.
Dom Frederick doesn't K.
Brad, you're in on this.
Dom Frederick doesn't K. He only hits home runs.
Okay.
That's right.
Who's the name?
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg.
That was a terrible. I shouldn't have talked.
Yeah.
That's the first time you're going to talk?
No, Greg. Hey, you know what? You get a lot of flack. You get a lot of flack on these shows. Let it fly, Greg. Keep cooking, my man.
You got it. So what's your question, Luke?
What's the one name? Just give me one name. Who are the Cubs?
Who do you think my one name is?
Shohei.
I've been saying it for months.
Shohei.
I don't care if he got hurt. Then that just means the price
If they
will be
added
more
one name
manageable.
this offseason, who's going to be the biggest name they add when we're sitting here on opening day?
Ohtani should be a Cub. I had a 7-minute rant that Cody had to sit through
Cody,
on a
who's the
post-game
name?
show.
Who's the name?
Literally,
we're thinking multiple names, but who's the biggest name they'll add?
That I want?
Or that you think?
Want or think? Those are two different conversations.
What do you think?
I think I think Cody Bellinger coming back is still real. I think that everything will fall into place.
So you think Bellinger will be the biggest name?
Yeah, but to me it should be Bellinger and.
Yeah, I agree.
Not just Bellinger.
I'm saying Cody Bellinger is like the number one priority as far as like what you do first.
Ryan, who's your guy?
That I think?
Yeah, if you think.
I think right now, if we're looking at like the
name.
guy that Cubs have a head start on is Cody Bellinger.
Okay.
Absolutely, just from him being in the organization for a year. They'd have obviously to trade for any of those guys. They'd have to start talking about trading.
But if they signed Ohtani, Bellinger would no longer be the biggest name.
Well, no, but that's if they sign
Dom,
Ohtani.
who's the name? What's the biggest name they're going to bring in?
I'm gonna say Yamamoto. I think.
Okay.
Even if they did bring it back Bellinger, I think pitching wins, and if we could get a frontline starter, as everyone's describing this guy to be, I think that's the move. Jed's shown it in the past. He'll go international to find, big players. Him and Theo did it for a while. I think I'm not necessarily calling it, but I think that will be the biggest name.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible. I'm with Braggs. If you're going to really go big, I still think they're in on Shohei.
Jeff Passan said
they were.
Yeah, I don't believe they're not interested in that.
They were a finalist the first time he was over here.
Yeah, I believe they're in on it.
He wants to go to a team that's on the rise. The Cubs are on the rise. They have a good nucleus. I have asked every single Cub fan this summer, would you buy the Marquee Network if Shohei Ohtani was a Cub? Any of these other names are great players. He's the only one that every single Cub fan will buy the Marquee Network.
Even Soto won't do that.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
He will bring in every single surface level fan, and you need those.
Yeah. I agree. No,
that's where it's going to sell Tom. That is where it's going to sell Tom, because I think
I
don't want to be continuously cynical about the Ricketts family, but if you were going to say, hey, Tom, all right, we know you don't really like to pay these big deals. We get it. But we got this guy that literally everyone is going to come watch play, and he's like a generational player. I think that's where, in the end, Tom will say, all right, let's just do it. Even though I've been on record by saying I do not think Shohei is coming to Chicago because, I said that originally before he got hurt. I don't know what the contract would look like, but at the same time, if there's any way to swing it, there's any way to get to that man and talk some sense to him and give him the fire again to actually compete for a goddamn championship like he did 10 years ago, it would be, hey, Tom, this guy's going to make you a ton of money. And they says, all right, fine, let's just do it.
I would say the best bet is probably Bellinger, and maybe you can look at that on the Circa Sportsbook, Cody, because, listen, they're new in Illinois. They're here. They're here to stay. They keep as little money as possible on large market bets, and they're not going to limit you. A big winner like me, big shooter like me.
Big shooter.
Huge, biggest.
Won $700 on the Super Bowl.
You still reminding us.
Some people remember that.
Still talking about it.
We all remember. You remind us.
They're not going to limit me next time I go to make something. So what else do you like about the guys at Circa?
I mean, their casino and resort in Vegas is immaculate. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Stadium swim's awesome. I also like the customer service because they don't have chat bots. You talk to actual people, so when you have an issue, which you probably won't because it's Circa and they're just top notch. When you do, rarely, you're not talking to some computer bot that will take an extra 10 minutes because you got to go through all these steps. There'll be someone right there that will, you'll talk to that is at Circa. So
that's very nice.
I think that's with some of the issues that I've had with other sports books. That is one thing that I enjoy.
Makes them stand out.
Yeah.
Download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app. To sign up today, also be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. If you or someone you know has a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB, G-A-M-B, to 833-234 or visit areyourreallywinning.com.
Yeah, you can go to the new location in Waukegan where you can actually place bets on schools in Illinois, I believe.
Slick.
That's
I know Dom, I know he's a
nice.
Northwestern guy, so
big time.
If you
Winning
wants
the Big
to,
Ten this year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Over
you
Purdue.
go place the bet in
Over Purdue,
place the
Greg.
bet in Waukegan, man. Anyway, Sunnyside. The weekend is upon us, guys. Sunnyside's, it's right there, right next to beautiful historic Wrigley Field. It's a great spot to hit up before you start your weekend.
Yeah, ask Corey. He'd
Ask
tell you
Corey.
all about it.
Yeah, even Dom might know too. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your football season, no matter where you are on your cannabis journey. Easy online ordering and in-store pickup. It has a great, transparent loyalty program called Sunnyside Rewards. It's Illinois' favorite dispensary. And they got the Sunnyside House of Brands, such as Mindy's, the best-tasting gummy and chocolate edibles created by James Beard Award-winning chef Mindy Siegel and Cresco Labs. Others like Good News, Cresco High Supply, Florcol, Wonder, and Remedy. Through October 15th, head to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order. One use per customer, not stackable with other promotions. That's not only for new customers. Anyone can use our code. Pick up everything you need to elevate your football season. Must be 21 plus or an Illinois Med card holder. Again,
Great.
You can use the code more than once. It's
Oh,
a beautiful
that's
thing.
not
That's
just for
like,
new
that's
people.
like
Keep
the best
using it.
part about it. You
Not
use the
just for
code
new
more
customers.
than once. Yes.
Dom is on the Greg Bragg's hotline, and we're talking to him about the Cubs, talking about our wishes for the offseason. Dom, you brought it up earlier. You kind of mentioned you want to talk a little bit about David Ross. The godfather of the CHGO Cubs podcast is Michael Collada. The man can't stand Tom Ricketts. He doesn't like David Ross. He doesn't like either one of them at all. I mean, he is. I've never seen anybody in a chat or anything anywhere more negative. So far today, he's said fired David Ross probably 45 times in our live chat.
He's like running down the list of things the Cubs need to do, and
yeah.
so far 1 through 8 is fire Ross.
But
from
the
Godfather.
best part is that his picture that he uses on YouTube, it's definitely a picture of him batting left-handed, and I have so much respect for that.
Yeah, and it's red, so you know it's an old photo.
Yeah,
It's
I
an
didn't
old
want to
photo.
say it, but thank you, Luke, for
Luke
It's
Luke
an old
Luke
photo. So Dom, how much blame do you give David Ross for the finish this season?
How much blame do I give him? I mean, at the end of the day, his job is, winning baseball games. And I'm not going to necessarily shy away from that. I think in my opinion, I led off the show with it. The Cubs are who we thought they were. They had a sketchy bullpen. They had a roster that had talent, but it was also, had plenty of flaws. And in the end, the Cubs had to play playoff games for 10 weeks in a row to try to salvage their season. I don't know any manager that could do a better job, like a substantially better job. A better job that's subjective because, yeah, there are some moves here and there, but a substantially better job. I'm talking like an 8-game difference, 9-game difference. I just don't know, man. I don't know what manager you were going to bring into this specific situation under these circumstances, having to play 10 weeks of playoff games to be like, oh yeah, no, the Cubs actually should have won 96 games or 95 games. I just don't see it. The bullpen was, besides the stretches in the middle of the year and then obviously July and August when the bullpen found its groove, it was a mess throughout the rest of the way. We can all admit that. Morales comes out of nowhere and becomes your closer, and then his arm, obviously gets injured because this is the first time he's ever been in these high leverage, high pressure, intense situations, being the closer, pumping the people's fist, doing all this stuff. He's piecing together all the Michael Fulmer's like fantastic and then he's absolutely terrible. Like it's just I don't know how we got the Cody's guy, the ass man out here, middle relief starting. We got Mark Leiter Jr. I mean, the guys like the Illuminati saying that the ass man's the best pitcher. This was just a cast of characters that I don't know what else you could have done with David Ross. And don't get me started about the whole lineup construction thing. We can talk about the 3-hitter Ian Happ, and I'm not putting this on Ian Happ, but the fact that I get so frustrated with the fact that so many people just want to gloss over all the guys Jed brought in. Hosmer, Mancini, Barnhart. Half the roster got DFA'd this year, and then it's David Ross's fault because they finished with 83 wins. Like, go back to the convention. The guys we trotted out onto that big old stage at the Hilton or whatever the Sheraton, they all got DFA'd in like 2 weeks. So I don't know how you can be like, oh, well, it's David Ross's fault when Jed picked all these players here, and they were all terrible. They were never good. They were all horrible. Let's just be honest about it. And, Cody, I'm not necessarily mad at what you're saying. I just don't see it the same way where everyone's like, all right, David Ross needs to be fired right now on a team that was projected to win 77 or 78 games. Now, with this being said, expectations go up in 2024. Absolutely. David Ross deserves 2024 to right this ship and show what he can do. Same thing with Jed. And I'm expecting a division win. I'm expecting a playoff berth. I'm expecting playoff wins. And if we don't get that, then I'll reevaluate. But from this point on, from what we know, David Ross should be the manager in 2024. And I stand by the fact that Tom, Jed, all the decision makers at 1060, Wes Addison are standing by David Ross. I fully support that.
Yeah, I've been nicknamed by one of the people in the chat, Sean Caselli. I've been nicknamed Lil Ross.
I think it's Lil Rossi.
Lil Rossi or whatever for what they consider defending and me just what I consider explaining the mindset and logic behind moves. Yeah. So I've been nicknamed Lil Ross, but I think you've now giving me a run for my money, and you might have just earned that nickname.
But I'll be honest with you. I think David Ross deserves better. He's had to manage through a rebuild. He's had to manage through an absolute mess. He's had to manage when the Cubs were trotting out Frank Schwindel and Pat Wisdom as our, lead guys. And we just want to the amount of stuff that I hear from people that respond to me. It's like David Ross has never won. He's never managed a good team. He only has the COVID division championship. Have you seen all the guys we've been playing since? And then the guys like I said earlier, the guys we brought in this year, we don't have a bunch of horses in the back. We've been scratching and clawing and finding our way to this point where, Cody, you and I are both in agreement. All we wanted this year was to play competitive baseball at the end of this season, and we did. That doesn't mean, expectations aren't going to increase next year, and David Ross will feel more heat next year. I will agree on that, but I just can't, at this point on, I just can't be like, David Ross isn't it. But I will plant my flag and say this. I want David Ross to win. That's actually one of the more motivating things that I want because that guy has done a ton for this organization. He led this. He helped, not necessarily lead, but he was a big part behind the scenes in the Cubs winning a World Series. He took this job. He worked as an analyst or whatever, special representative to the GM before taking this job. He's become a Chicago guy through and through. And sorry, I don't want Craig Counsell to manage the team. Sorry, I don't have this emotional connection to Craig Counsell. And I'm not trying to say I'm making this decision with my heart to just stand by David Ross because I think there are some objective facts to where David Ross should get a second opportunity. But I want David Ross to win here. I want David Ross to, hoist a trophy here. That would be amazing. And I think he deserves that opportunity. I'm not going to apologize for that either.
That was good stuff. So here's my response, Fred. When I sent the tweet, two 2.5 weeks before the season ended saying that if they don't make the playoffs, David Ross should be fired. I guess for me, like, you are correct. Jed Hoyer put the roster together, signed Trey Mancini, signed Eric Hosmer, Tucker Barnhart, Luis Torrens, whatever other names I'm missing, right?
Yep.
I guess for me, what happened in September when they had a 4-game lead in the wild card, to me, the manager is always like, there was something about what Joe Madden did that like kept those guys playing loose. And like that, I understand the 15 and obviously the 16 team, they're so much more talent that even like the 15 team probably talent wise, way more talent than this team. But they had similar expectations in 2015 as this team, right? This team, Vegas said 77.5 wins. They win 82. On one part of it, yes, he made the team better than what it was supposed to be, and they surpassed the beginning of the season expectations. But for me, how the season ended, I just feel like someone has to be accountable there. And the only thing that brings me back, I'm not necessarily complaining about how he made the lineups. It's the fact that he continuously ran out Trey Mancini, Eric Hosmer, some of those other names, and it's like you didn't have to play him. You actually called up Nelson Velasquez, and then you didn't play him after he hit a grand slam one night. You didn't play him at all. Like after that, Alexander Canario, you call him up, but you don't play him at all. Is that is that David Ross and the front office like talking together and making that decision on how they're going to do that, or is that David Ross making the decision? I don't know. All I can do is react from what I know.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's not just solely David Ross. I can tell you that. It's not his. He's not pulling it out of a hat and making the decision on his own or waking up going with his gut. It's not. It's not.
That's where I stand. There's no way David Ross has full autonomy, the biggest key to the car, and he's driving. He's the guy manning this whole thing. There's no Cody, I'm not trying to like full on disagree with you. I just don't work under that premise that David Ross has just, he's carte blanche. He can make any decision he wants. The fact that he worked he was a player under Theo and Jed. I guess now it's just Jed. Worked under Jed. He's now Jed's manager. Like, these guys are so close. It is definitely a collaborative effort to try to find a way to make these pieces match. And I think at the end of the day with Hosmer and Mancini, obviously Hosmer wasn't here for very long. Like, they cut bait relatively quickly, which is the smart decision. But with a guy like Mancini, they're like, everyone was kind of excited when they brought him in. Everyone was kind of like, yeah, this is a good move. This is a professional bat. Like, he came off a good year. Like, we got to kind of see it through. And if you're David Ross and your boss is like, yeah, we brought in this guy for you, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, not play him? Like, again, I just think it's too much of a collaborative space to just assume that David Ross deserves all the blame for continuing to play this guy. And I think
you're all right.
Well, you're all right. Go ahead and let I interrupted Cody. Go ahead and let Cody finish what he was going to say.
I guess for me, I haven't been sitting on this podcast all summer saying that David Ross should be fired. There were a lot, I hate bunting, so there were a handful of games where him calling for them to bunt in certain games made me want to pull my hair out, and I would criticize that. But there were a lot of games where I did come on here and defend David Ross. So I just want to reemphasize that. I just don't like how the end of the season happened. And again, for me, the manager is always about how you're getting guys to play for you or whatever. And sure, yes, those guys, I think they all want to play for him and all that. But at the same time, it's just how do you have a 4-game lead in the wild card and just completely flop? And the one thing outside of just all the stuff that you can't measure is that I felt like he did the same thing over and over and over in September. And again, I'm sure the front office has some say in how they wanted him to do things. All right. And that's fine. And clearly we're seeing that because they're not going to fire him. When I sent that tweet, I don't know. I was just thinking, it's like there has to be some sort of accountability here because you completely flipped the script and reeled me all the way in, reeled fans all the way into thinking that this team can at least make some noise, maybe win a playoff game, whatever, and at least take some momentum into the offseason to quite literally having a end of season collapse that we haven't seen, like, for a team with these kinds of expectations to just kind of give you a bitter feeling. Like, yeah, the future seems bright. The farm system is great. And you have all this money to spend. And, yeah, sure, if things go as like what we said in the first segment, go that way, then, yeah, I'll forget about how this September happened. But I guess for me in that moment when I sent that tweet, it was a combination of a lot of frustration that I've just had in general all season from David Ross, from all these things that I've already mentioned. And it just seemed like, is this guy the guy? And I think at the end of the day, with this debate, I agree that like next year is the year. If they're not good, then I think you really do have to consider it. I just thought at that time when I sent that tweet that, I wanted someone to be held accountable.
Yeah, and I don't think accountability always has to be someone being fired, right?
They fired the bullpen coach
and the catching and game strategy coach. Yes. But I also don't like considering what this season was and what we knew what was to be going into the season. Like me personally didn't think firing was sure, it's a way to hold someone accountable. I don't know if it was the best way to do it, because I think when you talk to Jed and you talk to Tom after, like, towards the end of the season, like, they were legitimately holding, especially Jed was like legitimately holding himself accountable for some of the things he did wrong this season. And I think if guys at the top can hold themselves accountable and really reflect on what they did wrong and what they need to do better. Again, considering what this season was supposed to be, going into next season, I really just, for me, being accountable is like really doing what you have to do to reflect and fix the mistakes you made. Now, as you guys have both said, next season is a different conversation. If they're in the same spot next year, then you're definitely asking questions about the people in charge, the manager, and all that. I just don't think for this season specifically, like, holding someone accountable by firing or holding the team or whatever accountable by firing the manager was, like, for me, it wasn't the best scenario to really show accountability.
Well, let me
have to go all in.
Let me ask you guys this. You can go around the room. What do you think was the top reason they didn't make the playoffs?
Not enough talent.
Yeah.
Not enough talent.
Depth, that right around there.
Not doing something different.
I got one.
What do you got, Dom?
And this was a point that I don't think anyone – I mean, I kind of made it, but, like, we just all agreed the bullpen was shot.
Bingo.
It was shot.
No,
it was fully shot. We go back to the stat, if someone can pull it up. Did they blow the most amount of games, to end a season? Something along those lines. They had the most amount of leads to end a season. Again, I know this is super vague. They had no closer. They had a setup guy in Mark Leiter Jr. who couldn't throw a splitter anymore. They had Merriweather, who was blown out. They had Fulmer, who was injured. Your Assad is trying to be a starter and a middle reliever. You even tried to bring back Stroman. It was it. This was it. Like, unless you're gonna say Luke Little should have been the saving grace. I mean, I don't know. I just have a hard time saying that.
Dom, you nailed it, Dom. To me, it was the bullpen, because early in the season, when they looked like they were playing well in that first month, but they should have had more wins than they did, It was the bullpen that was getting them in jams and losing them games. And at the end of the season, that continued to be the narrative. And I can remember going to games early in the season, and we'd be taking a piss in the troughs, and you'd hear some drunk fan come stumbling in there going, fire the manager, fire David Ross. He blew this game. I see Michael Collada in the chat. He blew those games. Like, what reliever do you want him to bring in? Because they're all taking a turn blowing a game.
It was a flawed roster.
Yeah.
We know that. We know it's a flawed roster. But I also do see that you watch this postseason, you say, all right, get in and make some noise. I don't know that the Cubs were ever serious about doing that anyway. I don't think this team would have had they been able to hold off some of the other teams and get into the postseason.
Would they have made noise?
No, I think they would have made Rays type of noise. That's what I think would have happened. I think they'd have been done pretty quickly.
Like Dom brings up Luke Little, and I wasn't some like Luke Little should be getting opportunities every single game or whatever, but it was like you called him up at the beginning of September, and I know they played all these close games, but like you had a 4-game lead in the wild card. There had to have been a game in there somewhere where you could have used them instead of using, Merriweather or Leiter for the 4th or 5th straight day in a row. And I've been a defender of David Ross when it comes to bullpen management. It's the one thing that I think he's been better than Joe Madden at, if you consider his entire tenure. I have been a defender of that. So, that's why I said just do something different. I just felt like we were doing the same thing over and over and over, and it felt like insanity. And you knew, you got to the point, especially in the last week and a half, where you're like, I've seen this movie before. This is going to suck. And then it sucked. And so, I don't know if it would have changed things. I don't know if we would have got a different result or an extra win or two or whatever. But it's like, to me, if there would have been a little bit more implementation of some guys he just didn't have any trust in, if he had implemented them a little bit earlier. Luke Little, probably a bad example because he was a September guy. But, I just feel like there were some other dudes that throughout the year, maybe you add on a few more wins if you're not, relying on so many veterans as much as he did. So, again, to me, I am more upset about how he did things in September. But I'm not I haven't been complaining about him all season.
No, and you've been pretty fair, Cody. Dom, here's what I would say. Going into the middle of next season, we should have the answer on a couple guys. To me, it's Jed Hoyer and it's David Ross. I don't know that we've fully been able to evaluate what they're doing, but this offseason is everything for Hoyer. Yeah. And the start of next season, depending on what happens, could be everything for David Ross. I would say
that's fair.
They can go ahead and buy the house in Lincoln Park, but I wouldn't put the pool in yet, right? I wouldn't dig the hole for the big pool with the diving board just yet. You might want to buy the house and leave it on the market. Or don't buy all the furniture. Don't fill all the rooms with furniture quite yet because we're not sure. And I think that is fair.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Construction costs are pricey. Yeah, I agree. We're trying to put a new bathroom in our basement. It's crazy. They're upcharging everybody. Yeah. Now it might not be the time, Luke. I'm right there for you. We're trying to get our 4th quote here. We got plumbers coming in left or right. We might have Braggs do it, to try to
the price of wood. The price of wood these days.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Lumber. You know what, Luke? To be honest with you, I kind of feel the same way. I said a year ago, Jed. I gave Jed 2 more years. This year, considering what happened, Jed's buying another year, so I'm going to give Jed 2 more years after this year. But you're totally right. He has to prove himself. He's got to make some big moves. He's got to get creative. He's got to throw his weight around. And I know I do it a lot, and I know other Cubs fans do it a lot. But at the end of the day, the most successful, president of baseball operations, the most successful executive we've ever seen here, threw his weight around and made some big shots and made some big gambles, and it worked, and sometimes it didn't work, and it's time for Jed to go out and do the same thing. You can't play scared at this point in time, and we really shouldn't be playing scared when we play in the division that we do. It'd be totally different if we were in the AL East, or if we had to keep fighting with all the spending that goes on in the NL East. But now's the time to be aggressive and just get after it, because we've seen it enough. We've lost to the Brewers enough. We've seen the Cardinals win enough. And it's about time that we flip the script and make things right here in the NL Central.
Don Frederick is right. It is time for the Cubs to throw it on the table. What am I talking about? The CHGO diehard card. Maybe that's what gets Shohei Ohtani in the finish line. Maybe that's what gets Cody Bellinger. Like, listen, guys, we're going to let you rename Hotel Zachary. We'll call it Hotel Shohei, whatever you want. And here's the diehard card from CHGO. 20% off all events. You get dope merch for all our teams. You get a free shirt when you become a member. Members only Discord. And, of course, the Big Bears tailgates. By the way, X Golf certificate giveaway for the next 3 tailgates, including this one, this Sunday against the Vikings. X Golf's going to be giving away a $200 gift certificate to any of their Chicagoland locations. Find the X Golf location nearest you at playxgolf.com/Chicagoland.
And when you talk about, like, Die Hard, we got all these events, like a tailgate coming up, and you know what's going to be there?
Goose Island, baby.
Goose Island, yep. You come to our tailgate this Sunday. You get yourself a lot of Goose Island, whatever kind you want. Goose Island is the official beer of CHGO. It's Chicago's beer since 1988. I mean, we talked about the regular season Braves roster, historic roster. The Goose Island beer roster is even better. They got the Oktoberfest, Beer Hug Family, 312 Wheat Ale, Full Pocket Pills, which, Cody, is that you, the Full Pocket Pills guy?
Absolutely.
At least for beer bet chugs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I'm a 312 guy. I love my 312s. I know Corey's on the same wavelength. Luke?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 312.
There we go.
Maybe a Full Pocket Pilsner.
It's nice and light. Great for the summer.
There we go. So grab ultra-fresh brewery-exclusive beers at Goose Island's original brew house on Clybourne Avenue in Lincoln Park, or from their tap room on Fulton Street in Westtown. Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer.
We've gone a little bit over our time. We still have a couple minutes left. Dom, can you hang with us for like 3 more minutes,
Yeah,
5 more minutes?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. The show runs over. You get Dom Frederick on, and now we got, as my mom likes to say, we got 4 blowhards here just talking hard. And we just, I said, Mom, I don't know if that's a term we want to use anymore, but like, that's what she likes to say.
Got to include Bragg, so make it 5.
We got 5 of them here.
Braggs.
5 meatballs.
Come on, guys.
So what do you want to talk about in the last segment here? You choose your own adventure. Do you want to talk about the 6-homer game against the Cardinals, or do you want to talk about Bob Costas bringing up Bartman all the time?
Bob Costas. Dom, I'd love your opinions about Bob Costas, because Bob Costas is dead to me as of last night. Because this guy, I swear to God, every freaking time Mark Pryor went to the mound to tell his pitcher to stop sucking, Bob Costas was saying something about Game 6 of the NLCS in 2003, and it just killed me a little bit inside. And I just, I genuinely wondered if he knew that he wasn't watching the Cubs. He was watching the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, man. Like, sorry, Luke, I can't take these old dudes on broadcast anymore, man. I can't do it, man.
You didn't apologize to the Godfather.
I'm sorry, Godfather. I just can't do it, man. Like, what's his name? Brian Anderson for the Braves and the Phillies. Like that.
Brian Anderson from the Brewers?
What? No, I'm talking about a broadcaster. Yeah. Brian Anderson.
No, calls the Brewers games.
Does he call Brewers games? I don't know.
Do I
look like I watch Brewers games?
Anyways, are you going to call Brian Anderson old now too?
No, I was going to give him credit because he had a great call. Well, I didn't know.
Well,
that.
You're old.
Anyway, we you've been gone all week, so you were due for an old comment.
Grant Biendo.
He had a great call for the end of the Braves-Phillies game, Game 3, when Harper was thrown out at first base.
He's good. He's very good.
That was a great game-ending call. Or whatever. Bob Costas has been dull that entire series.
So you're out on Costas and Al Michaels.
I'm out. I'm definitely out on Bob Costas. Al Michaels, I like Al Michaels, but I know he's old. So like what I said. But as far as baseball broadcasts, I can't deal with these old people anymore, man. I can't do it. So there's my rant.
All right, Dom. What do you think?
Bob Costas. We shouldn't go any. I'm surprised it hasn't been talked about the felony charge that he should have been charged with when he talked about Pedro Strop that one time a couple years ago, coming into the game. I forget what he even said. I just know it should have been a felony. And he's dead to me. I totally agree, Cody. Like, the guy.
I'm glad we can agree on something today,
man.
The
guy in the Olympics hasn't been never came back since that. He's been lost ever since, and I'll never forget what he said about Pedro Strop. Just a wonderful man, handling his business, trying to come into a game in like the 7th inning, and he blows him up before he can even throw a first pitch. Just absolute shame. He's dead to me. I have nothing nice to say about Bob Costas. I totally agree. Let's get some younger blood in here.
He did the Sandberg game. He did a lot of the Jordan era, though, guys.
I don't care.
He is a legend. I will say he does live in St. Louis, if you didn't know that.
Oh,
well, that might explain why he just
He
couldn't
does live in St. Louis. And a little sidebar note. He is a nice guy, but if you ever set up an interview with him, you have to shoot his person will tell the cameraman you have to shoot it from his good side. So he always has to be looking. If you ever go back and look, Bob Costas will always be looking the same direction because he believes he has one good side. And if the camera sets up the wrong way, he will make sure it's set up the other way.
At least he has one good one.
I mean, look at me. I let him have my bad side here all the time.
I got 2 bad ones.
Yeah. Two bad sides.
That's why I'm straight up the middle.
It's just it was just to wrap it up. It was just very annoying. Like it just like let Steve Bartman go, bro. Like I know we have to talk about the
Joe Buck or Bob Costas. You got to get rid of one.
Ooh. Bob Costas. I would
at least.
I didn't like Joe Buck in the 2016 playoffs, but like the guy can call a game. I will give him credit. He can call a game. I think he emphasizes guys like certain players way too much. Like he emphasized Clayton Kershaw in the NLCS, like as if he was like God. And I know he's in the prime of his career, or whatever. But like it was like over and over and over. Like that's the only thing about Joe Buck that I don't like. But I think he calls a great game. There's a reason he's just doing Monday Night Football now. Like
right.
He calls a good game.
The correct answer is Marty Brenneman, but that's another story.
Off the rails.
Hey, Foco, check out the set decorations. We always got the great Hayden Wisniewski bobblehead, hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, everything in between. It's Aloha shirts, straw hats, polos, bags. Hey, you're looking for a nice holiday gift coming up. This is the place to go. You can always find our set decorations there. Check out foco.com. Click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Dom Frederick has been our very, very good guest today. 1 hour and 7 minutes you stuck with us. Did you ever think you would last that long with us today?
No, I think the last time we did it longer. Last time I think it was like an hour and a half. I was ready for this.
Oh, really?
It may have been.
I was ready for this, especially if you told me that Braggs was on the 1s and 2s. I could be here for 3 hours.
Braggs is on the 1s and 2s.
Braggs just smiled.
He's on the 1s and 2s, but he's been on his cell phone more than he's been on anything during this show. He's been over there making deals.
I'm a busy man, Luke.
Yeah, he's a busy man.
I'm a busy man, Luke.
He's laying bricks in his head. He's over there.
I'm a busy man.
I feel like me, Braggs, and Dom in a bar would just be a vibe.
It would be a vibe.
Like, a good time. But there would be a lot of
yelling. Dom is so mysterious. So everyone wants to know what Dom looks like, including me.
And he might look like a bear.
Every year he might look like a bear. We don't know. But one year,
he's a handsome man.
So Cap and I have been doing those Bernie's Book Bank walks for a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first or second year, whichever one, we're walking through Evanston, and Cap is talking to someone in a car.
Yeah.
And we're like, come on, Cap, we got to get going. Car pulls away, waves. I don't get a good look on the face. It's like the Loch Ness Monster.
Jed.
And I go, Cap, who was that? And he goes, that was Dom. You know Dom Frederick, director of morale? I go, are you kidding me?
Start chasing the car down.
Oh, seriously. I immediately texted him. I'm like, what the hell?
Braggs was chasing after you going, I'm the ass man.
And it only added to this allure of this mystery that he leans into, and I respect it.
Well, I was lucky to meet Dom at Cubs convention last year. We stood there and talked for like 20 minutes. So that was
now I don't even want to know what he looks like until the
Dom,
Cubs win another World Series.
What do you think about the next show? We do it at a time when you can do it, and we put a giant fat head and you hold it on a popsicle stick in front of your face.
Yeah, we can figure. I actually like the Cody idea. Just make my
mask?
Avatar and just make it just like a big I don't know, like a big poster in front of me.
Yeah.
It just covers
the mask
space.
thing could work too. I think that would kind of scare people though.
Right. It sounds kind of kinky, honestly.
Around Halloween.
That's not the visual I was going for. Yeah.
Rags was a big fan of Eyes Wide Shut.
I appreciate you coming on the show today, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It was a disappointment we didn't get you on before the season, so I wanted to make a point to try and get you on after the season.
I really appreciate it. You guys have a great show.
We can just rap with him.
I'm very happy to see the growth you guys have all had, and Greg, I texted to you the other day. You guys have the best Bears post game show in the city. I stand by that. Shout out to all you guys. I watch every single one. Congratulations on all the success, and I really again appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Tom. How about we do this again after the Cubs make what we all agree is their big signing? The week of that. We'll reconvene, and we'll figure out how we're going to do it. Sound good?
Let's do it.
I like that.
Cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right,
absolutely.
Tom, Frederick. And that has been the CHGO Cubs Podcast. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We are back here. Corey and Brendan have a show on Friday. It is not live, Barb, but it will be out at 1:20.
We'll be out at 1:20.
We're back live on Monday right here in studio with Cough Drops. Until then, thanks for watching. Hit the like button on the way out, and don't forget, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.